Exit interviews can be wondrous things. When you're leaving a company, you get to unleash on your former employers and also people who annoy you from that company, like Charlotte, who sits across from you in your cubicle doing almost no work because she is busy trying to get the attention of a clear sociopath who will only break her already fractured heart. Just open the spreadsheet, Charlotte. At least pretend you are working. But for a cricket team, exit interviews do actually suck because there is only one great result in a season. That's like winning it. And everyone else has to take a good hard look at themselves. But to speed up that process, we have taken a good hard look at the teams who have been not so good. They've been bad this year. And thankfully, we could start this process super early because there's been some teams who've really struggled. Thanks for the misery, fellas. Here we are looking at just how bad these teams were and how they may be able to adjust the suck for next year.
As a cricket journalist, I would travel sometimes up to 200 days a year. I loved watching cricket games. I loved going to new countries. It was an absolute dream. But there was one thing I hated more than anything else about it, and it was this little pin. The thing that I need to change my SIM card in every new country. The absolute worst thing about this pin and SIM cards is when I was traveling to the West Indies, of having to arrive in every new island or country and having to work out if I could still find this pin and then line up and get my SIM card in every single airport. Well, now we have the answer thanks to Sally. They can make it so you never have to worry about this nonsense ever again. They use an eSIM app that once you install once, it is easy, simple, and cheap. Oh, and it works in more than 160 countries. And you can throw these pins away forever because now you just need to download the Sally app before your trip. And if you do it with our code, Good Areas, you get an exclusive 15% discount on Sally eSIM data plans. So before your next holiday or work trip or any time you have to travel to another country, download the Sally app and use the code Good Areas, or one word, at checkout, and you can travel like a pro with Sally.
CSK. They struggled to make a positive impact with the bat in any phase of the innings. They were the slowest scoring side in the first 6 overs and in the last 4 overs, and they were pretty ordinary in the middle ones as well. An entire sandwich of shit. And it wasn't just that they were slow, they obviously lost a lot of wickets as well. Their bowling wasn't as bad. Khalil Ahmed and Noor Ahmed did pretty well in the power play and the middle overs respectively. But Patharana had some moments, but wasn't that good. But there's certainly some bowling talent there to use. But let me tell you the stat that really tells you about them as a team this year. They were 1-5 at home. The fortress, right? You know, it is supposed to spin there. It didn't really spin. And because of that, they were not really good. In fact, their only win at home was when they played Mumbai, and Jasper Bumrah and Hardik Pandya did not play in that game. By the time their batting got good for a game, they were pretty much already out of the season. It was like the 6th game or something. And what happened in that one? They made 190 and they did not defend it. It was that kind of season, right? To be fair, they'd also struggled in other games when they just hadn't made enough runs. So it's not just on the batters, it's not just on the bowlers, it's a group effort. The most interesting thing for Chennai was that they were so poor this year that they had to play a bunch of replacement players. Ayush Matre, Dilwar Brevis, and Urval Patel. They are 17, 21, and 26 respectively. They also all have cool names like Matre, Dilwar, Urval. Some excellent work from some parents there. You add that to the bowlers I said before, and there's kind of a spine of something that you could see here. It's probably not a team that's going to spring back next year. And in fact, we might even have like some second season blues of some of those players. Hello, Jake Fraser McGurk, if you're watching. But with players like Dubé and Gaikwad and the bowling that I talked about before, Jadeja's all-round ability as well, and then all of these younger players coming through, there's something there to build from. I don't think it's a complete write-off. And it might be the kind of team where you have a bunch of young players and a bunch of older players and you just catch fire. It's probably more likely towards the back end of the mega cycle, we're going to see more of an impact of them. Like India kind of did in Test cricket, Chennai's going to have to make the decision on R. Ashwin, who went for almost 10 crore. They've already kind of made a decision with Ravi Jadeja, right, in moving him in the batting order a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if that is a plan going ahead or they're just doing that because, you know, the season's gone to shit. Either way, they're probably wondering to themselves whether he's worth 18 crores as well. And maybe the biggest decision, of course, is MS Dhoni. It might be MS Dhoni's decision rather than anyone in the franchise, but at a certain point, they are going to have to do something with MS Dhoni because I'm sick and tired of people contacting me, telling me that he batted at number 9. I know. I kind of think that Brevis, Patharana, and Gaikwad are the 3 players that can swing it the most next year. And I think that's a good place to be in. They actually, even though they were absolutely filthy at times this year, The overall squad still has something that they can go through. They just have to make some big decisions. And most crucially, they have to work out if they can win games if the wicket is not spinning at home, because that has been their superpower for a very long time. And if that doesn't happen, plan B, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Rajasthan lost 3, maybe even 4 games that they probably should have comfortably. If that happened, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation yet. They were the best batting team in the power play all season. The problem is the other 34 overs. So they were really good for 6. They're quite bad for 34. In fact, the rest of their innings after the start of the game just kind of never went their way at all. And as far as bowling goes, they never really took any wickets, and they went for a lot of runs. They weren't particularly an attacking bowling attack. They certainly weren't a defensive one. It just didn't work. There was a lot of good players that they had in that lineup that they thought probably should have been better and just didn't get the job done. Having said that, very few of us had high hopes for this team coming in. It's probably one of the few teams that played almost exactly as we thought they would this year. They also had a 2-4 record at home. Of course, that is split over 2 different locations for them, which is another thing that teams might need to start thinking about. Like, find a home that works for you and play there a lot. And in Jaipur, which is their main ground, they won the game when Vaibhav did Vaibhav things, right? Like that's the game that they won there. And a bit like CSK, they've done some good work on the replacement market. Maybe not quite as transformative as what CSK has done, but they do have the giant overgrown baby Luhandre Pretorius, who just absolutely whacks them. Go and find some highlights of him. And they also got big Nandre Berger. So a couple of decent players there. And Pretorius is obviously the most important replacement player that they have picked here. The issue is he's another top order player. And I just said that that's the only part of the game that they weren't struggling with, right? Like they probably needed the best middle or lower order batter available on the replacement market. But they went for talent. And to be fair, he has absolutely oodles of that. Rajasthan decided to go with a nearly all Indian batting lineup this year and then back that up with international bowlers. The issue that they had is that Shimron Hetmeyer and Juve Jarrod got paid an awful lot of money and just it didn't work for either of them. But also, Tikshana wasn't exactly the bowler that they needed, and their local bowlers to back up their international bowlers also didn't do well. There's a lot of issues there, but there's nothing in that squad that really ever said that was a team that was likely to make the playoffs. So in some ways, unlike CSK, there isn't as much light at the end of the tunnel. Like they're going to have to make some pretty big changes, aren't they? Juve Jarrell, I assume, is going to have a bounce back year next year. He might not be spectacular, but he's certainly not going to be this bad. Shimron Hetmeyer has been very good for a very long time. They should probably stick with them. The two that they'll probably make the biggest changes with are the overseas bowlers who didn't work. Fazalhaq and Tikshana, on paper, work perfectly together. When it's a seam bowling one, you use Fazalhaq. When it's spin, you use Tikshana. Just neither of them bowled particularly well this year. So they're going to have to make some big decisions there. There aren't that many players available on the market, but maybe that's why Nandre Berger is quite handy. I think of the 3 teams in our exit interviews, this is the one I'm a bit like, I don't actually know what the best course is. I think in CS case, it's like, there is something to work with here. Let's try and build it back up and be good again in 2 to 3 years. In Sunrise's case, you can be like, can we just roll the dice for one more year because we're at the start of the mega auction cycle anyway? With Rajasthan, you could actually convince me that the batting unit is fine and you just need a couple of top ups of overseas players. But you could also convince me that the overall team just isn't that strong. Like all the talent does look like they want to bat at the top of the order. You can't fit everyone there as it is. So maybe whole school changes need to be made to the rest of the roster. What I'm saying is they were really good for like 6 overs and then the other, you get the idea. Maybe the most disappointing thing this year was that the Sunrisers decided to block in a game. Because they did start by making 286 for 3. And I was like, yep, someone's going to break the 300 mark this year. Maybe them, maybe someone else. And then it just wasn't that kind of season, right? The bowlers did really well throughout the entire year. The start of the season, everyone was going, T20 cricket is broken. I'm never going to watch it again. We shouldn't have bowlers. And all those people just disappeared out of my comments by about week 3. It is worth pointing out that they did actually have 2 great batting performances this year because they also chased down 246. So what do you do with a team that can make 286 and chase down 246, but has actually still been utter pants? I think one thing that happened last year with the Travis Head thing is that it came kind of out of nowhere. Yes, we knew that Travis Head was very good and we'd seen little bits of Abhishek Sharma, but it was the double tap, right? When both of them are in form and they're smashing you, it's like bowlers just start to panic. When one of them's in slightly worse form and the other one is, very bad form at times in this year, I think that just allows you to just take a breath, bowl your best ball, and see how you go. So I think that played a big part in it. The other one is I just never felt that the batting order was quite as revolutionary as last year. And it meant that when they failed, Heinrich Klaassen was batting way higher up the order than you probably want him to. And weirdly enough, a lot of this probably comes down to Ishan Kishan, who started with that incredible knock. The openers weren't as dominant. and he was going out way too quickly, meant that they kind of lost the Heinrich power and they didn't get much from the top. That's kind of what you want this team to be, right? I mean, it tells you everything about the Sunrisers that Heinrich Klaassen didn't actually have a bad season. He had a consistent season, and that looks so disappointing. And we rated this team really highly coming in. And one of the reasons was they have an attacking batting lineup paired with wicket-taking bowlers, which is kind of how England did very well in white ball cricket for a long time. Like, that's a pretty decent way of putting things together. Unfortunately, though, the Sunrisers bowlers couldn't create any pressure at all. Those wicket takers didn't take any wickets, and their defensive bowlers didn't really stand up either. It was pretty dire outside of the power play. And in the 6 innings where they batted first, they scored between 143 and 4 times. That's not even a good score when IPL cricket started. It's certainly not a good one now. They also had a couple of opportunities on fairly flat wickets to chase around 200, and they couldn't do that either. So it wasn't just batting first that was the issue. They might have ended up going 3-3 at home if there wasn't a washout. And it is worth remembering that they were still, at least on occasion, breathtaking when they were in Hyderabad. Honestly, I flip-flop on Ishan Kishan all the time, but I don't think paying 11 crores for a player of his talent at his age is a bad signing. For instance, Jarrod got more money, right? But at a certain point, Ishan Kishan needs to be something like consistent, even if it's just averaging 27 with a strike rate of 165 consistent, because at the moment he doesn't quite bat quick enough or stay in long enough. And Mohammad Shami was another good signing. It just looked to me that it was a little bit too early in his recovery. He actually looked a little bit like Jofra looked about 2 months back, right? Where you were like, ooh, is Jofra ready for this? Maybe by the time the test series comes around, he'll be a completely different creature. Unfortunately, they just needed it now. So when it comes down to it, I don't think that they should abandon either of these two players. They're both around the 10 crore mark, so they're not massively expensive. One of the issues for Ishan Kishan might be that he might just be better suited to opening, and he might never be any better than any of the other opening options that most teams are going to have. Certainly not than Travis Shack. The issue with Mohammad Shami is age and injuries, right? If he's completely fully in form and fit, I don't think there's any issues. And it wasn't just those two players. I think Adam Zampa was the other one that really caused a lot of issues for them. And the fact that the openers weren't as dominant. It was also that they didn't have another strike bowler. They tried Adam Zampa for 2 games. I think he got whacked, certainly in one of them that I remember. Then he was out for a while. Then he got injured, and he just never came back. They really needed one of Zampa or Shami to be able to take wickets this season. And when neither of them did, they needed the batting to be like last year, and the batting wasn't like last year. So they have to hope that Shami comes back, but they also need another backup spinner. It might be someone like Tikshana, who might be back on the market after the Royals year, because I don't think that Zishan Ansari can be the primary spinner on his own for the majority of an IPL season. But all things considered, you look at this team on paper, and I think if you're the Sunrisers, you can probably convince yourself to just run this back. It's very possible it fails again. And maybe the year before, I don't want to say that it was a fluke, but perhaps it was more form dependent. In fact, the last 2 years, you could argue, have been really form dependent. Maybe in the previous IPL season, every batter was in form. And in this one, they weren't all in form. And that could be the difference. So next year, you might have a middling season. If you can improve your bowling in any way, shape, or form possible, maybe you have a year. I think if I was running Sunrisers, I would run it back. It just doesn't feel like this is the kind of team that you have to do a teardown for. So these are the exit interviews we have so far. By next week, we'll probably add some more until there is only one survivor, which is, as you know, pretty much how sport works. Please like, subscribe, tell your mum about us.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.